As the members of a task force consider where to recommend construction of a new men's prison or prison facilities in South Dakota, there is another committee gathering to take a closer look at who is behind bars in the state's prisons. In tonight's Eye on Kettleland, Dan Santella speaks with lawmakers on the committee and reviews some of the data that might surprise or concern some taxpayers.
Senator Kevin Jensen of the Canton area has a specific number in mind.
If we can get the recidivism down to about 20%, that would open up about 200 beds a year for the next 2 or 3 years.
The State Department of Corrections measures recidivism by looking at how many prisoners return to prison in the 3 years after they're released. According to state data, the recidivism rate for prisoners in 2019 was about 41%, before rising to 43% in 2020. Decreasing that number is a clear goal.
That is a difficult thing to solve, and it's a complex issue. And if we could find the answer to that, I'm sure everyone would be interested in how we came up with that.
Hopefully we can find a path forward where we can reduce recidivism. You know, when we reduce recidivism, that's good for everybody, right? It's great for the community because offenders are behaving when they're released. You know, it's good for people that have made mistakes in the past because they can correct their behavior and become tax-paying members of society.
Jensen, Representative Tim Reich of the Howard area, and Representative Mary Fitzgerald of the Spearfish area are among the state lawmakers on South Dakota's initial incarceration, reentry analysis, and comparison of relevant states interim committee, which recently met for the first time. The state's prison population compared to other states has their attention. This graph from the state, using data from the Bureau of Justice Statistics through the end of 2023, measures the prison populations per 100,000 people of South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana. As you can see, North Dakota's is notably lower. The degree to which Native Americans are overrepresented among South Dakota's prison population is also in focus. This graph from the state shows that last summer, about 40% of all the state's prisoners were Native, and more than 60% of its female prisoners were Native. Around the same time, per the U.S. Census Bureau, Native Americans made up about 9% of the state's population.
Where I'm from in District 26, having 3 tribes within my district, living with on a reservation, I think it's really important that we begin to ask the why questions as to why the very high percentage of those who are incarcerated in South Dakota are Native American.
Senator Tamara Grove of Lower Brule, Senator Carl Perry of Aberdeen, and Representative Caden Whitman of Sioux Falls are also on the committee.
I'd like to see this committee leave at the end of this summer study with a few concrete recommendations that we can make to the legislature in 2026 to help hopefully lower recidivism, support better reentry opportunities, and just better support our incarcerated friends and neighbors.
I think if we could develop more mentoring programs, that might make a big difference. And I think if we had a better visitation program, and I know that we have a visitation program, I know it gets abused and I know there's problems with it, but I don't think it helps our issues when we keep families away from families.
Substance use is also part of this complicated puzzle. This table from the South Dakota DOC shows how many inmates have battled substance use disorder in recent years, as high as 98% for women and 94% for men.
We are putting far too many people in prison for substance use disorders. And you're not going to get results with someone who has a substance use disorder when you're just locking them up.
The lawmakers studying these numbers are by definition politicians, but the problems they're looking to address aren't inherently political.
I think it's important to note that this summer study looking at reentry and incarceration is fully bipartisan, and this is not an issue that is specific to Republicans or Democrats.
Judicial reform, I think, could play a role in reducing the amount of people that we incarcerate.
When we're talking about incarceration, this is not a Democrat issue. It's not a Republican issue. It's kind of like when you have a hole in the road. It's not a Republican hole or a Democrat hole. It's a hole that needs fixed. We have an incarceration situation that needs to be fixed.
With Eye on Kettleland, I'm Dan Santella.
Representative Tim Reich, who once served as South Dakota's DOC secretary, also shared concerns for people working in the system.
The staff is talking to us, and we need to back up our staff, the correction staff. They're the people on the front lines day in and day out. And if they feel threatened or they don't feel supported, and that's what's going on, then we need to adjust. We need to do better.
The committee is scheduled to have its next meeting on July 16th.